Could you name a country dirtier than India, more overcrowded than Tokyo's subway stations, and more chaotic than any place your mind can imagine? If you thought of Bangladesh, you were right. From workers dismantling massive ships with their bare hands to children as young people laboring in toxic factories, all unfolding against a backdrop suffocated by pollution and natural disasters, Bangladesh reveals a reality that most of the world never sees. 1. A hygiene crisis beyond imagination. Bangladesh lies in South Asia and is mainly a flat country with vast plains formed by the Ganges River. Often called the land of rivers, it has over 700 rivers flowing across its surface, shaping its landscape and supporting the daily lives of its people. Covering around 57,000 square miles, Bangladesh is home to more than 173 million people, making it one of the most crowded regions on Earth. For visitors, the street food can be a surprising experience. Makeshift stalls on every corner, serving pithas, fuchka, and chotpati to millions of hungry customers daily. Yet, utensils are washed in buckets of dirty water, sometimes the same water that flows in open sewers running alongside the sidewalk. Food sits exposed under the blazing sun, covered in flies, while ingredients are prepared mere feet from raw sewage. But it gets worse. In rural areas, families turn to eating insects like locusts and beetles not by choice, but out of desperate necessity. Some still believe in drinking fresh goat's blood or eating raw animal liver, thinking it will give them strength. If you're watching on your phone, don't just stop at the like button, tap the hype button right below. It really helps me earn a bit of extra income, and we promise to keep bringing you exciting content. 2. The hidden cost of your designer clothes. Every time you put on a shirt from Zara, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Burberry, or Prada, there's a chance it was made by someone earning less than $3 a day in Bangladesh. The country is one of the world's largest clothing exporters, and these global brands flock here for one reason: incredibly cheap labor costs. But cheap for who? Workers in these textile factories endure 12 to 14-hour shifts in conditions that would be illegal in most countries. They handle dangerous chemicals without protective gear, work in buildings with poor ventilation, and face constant exposure to toxic dyes and materials. The result is devastating. Many of these workers don't live past 50 years old due to the constant chemical exposure. The workforce is predominantly young women, many under 25, who leave impoverished villages hoping for a better life in the cities. Instead, they find themselves trapped in an endless cycle of exploitation. And now, take a look at your closet. Do you see any labels written on them? Leave a comment below and chat with me. 3. The world's most dangerous ship graveyard. If you thought textile work was dangerous, wait until you hear about Chittagong, home to the world's largest ship graveyard. Here, enormous cargo ships and oil tankers are dismantled piece by piece in what might be the most hazardous job on the planet. Picture massive ocean vessels being torn apart almost entirely by hand. Workers with no safety equipment handle heavy metals, toxic waste, and even radioactive materials daily. They use basic tools like hammers and torches to break down ships that were built to withstand the worst storms at sea. Most workers come from rural areas, drawn by promises of employment. But the reality is brutal. Wages are minimal, hours are exhausting, and there are virtually no labor protections. Workers regularly suffer from respiratory problems, chemical burns, and diseases from metal exposure. Many don't even know what materials they're handling or how dangerous they are. The environmental damage is equally severe, with toxic materials polluting the sea and affecting entire coastal communities that depend on fishing for survival. Not stopping at the Chittagong ship graveyard, beneath the cities of Bangladesh lies an even darker and more dangerous world. But before we go any deeper, don't forget to support us by liking the video, subscribing to our channel, and turning on notifications. Thank you. Best of followers. 4. The invisible men of the sewers. In the depths of Bangladesh's cities, thousands of workers perform one of the most dangerous and degrading jobs imaginable: cleaning sewers by hand. These men, known as manual scavengers, enter manholes and drainage systems without any safety equipment whatsoever. They work in complete darkness, surrounded by human waste, toxic gases, and deadly diseases. Their tools are basic buckets, shovels, and their bare hands. They face constant risk of suffocation from methane gas, drowning in sewage, or contracting life-threatening infections. Despite performing work that's absolutely vital for cities like Dhaka to function, they earn less than a few dollars per day. The most heartbreaking part. This practice continues because Bangladesh lacks the infrastructure and political will to modernize its sanitation systems. While other countries use machines and safety protocols, these workers risk their lives daily just to keep cities functioning. If you were in charge of improving their working conditions, what would you do first? Type 1, if you'd focus on providing safety gear, or 3, if you'd push to replace manual labor with modern machines. I'm really curious to see what most of you think. 5. Childhood stolen by necessity. Imagine being 5 years old, and instead of playing with toys or learning to read, you're working 10-hour shifts in a brick kiln under the scorching sun. This is reality for an estimated at about 4.7 million young people in Bangladesh between ages 5 and 14. They work in textile factories handling dangerous chemicals, in brick kilns exposed to extreme heat, or as domestic servants with no protection from abuse. They work longer hours than many adults, often more than 10 hours daily, for wages that are less than half what an adult would earn for the same work. This isn't just about poverty forcing difficult choices. This is about a system that systematically exploits the most vulnerable members of society. They should be in school, learning skills that could break the cycle of poverty. Instead, they're trapped in work that damages their health, stunts their development, and ensures they'll remain poor for life. 6. Air that kills. Take a deep breath right now. In Bangladesh, that simple act could be shortening your life. The country consistently ranks among the worst in the world for air quality, with Dhaka regularly competing for the title of most polluted city on Earth. Vehicle emissions from millions of poorly maintained cars and buses, unregulated industries pumping out chemicals, constant burning of trash and biomass, and dust from endless construction projects all combine to create air that's more poison than oxygen. During winter months, when rainfall is scarce, Dhaka disappears under a dense blanket of smog so thick you can barely see buildings across the street. To put it into perspective, there are days when Dhaka tops the charts as the most polluted city on the planet, surpassing even massive urban centers like New Delhi, Beijing, and Lahore. The human cost is staggering. Air pollution causes more than 150,000 premature deaths annually in Bangladesh. Respiratory diseases like asthma, bronchitis, and lung infections have become epidemic. If you think your daily commute is bad, wait until you see 173 million people try to move around in Bangladesh. 7. Transportation that defies logic. Buses and trucks that are decades old, held together more by hope than proper maintenance, packed with passengers far beyond any reasonable capacity. We're not talking about a few extra people standing in the aisle. We're talking about passengers hanging from the sides of moving vehicles, sitting on rooftops, and clinging to any available surface just to get from point A to point B. In Dhaka, the capital city, a 3-mile journey can easily take over 2 hours during peak times. Then there are the rickshaws, those bicycle-powered vehicles with small passenger cabins. The men who operate these rickshaws are often painfully thin, yet they spend their days pedaling through scorching heat, transporting people across long distances for wages that barely cover their own survival. But perhaps most shocking of all is the train system. During rush hour, trains become so overcrowded that passengers don't just fill the interior compartments. They cover every inch of the train's exterior, sitting on roofs, hanging from windows, and gripping onto any handhold they can find. 8. When one husband isn't enough. In the remote areas of Bangladesh, the Mandi tribe, also known as the Garo people, practices something that would shock most of the world: sharing husbands. In Mandi culture, a woman can share her husband with her sister or another close female relative. This practice ensures that all women, especially those who might otherwise remain unmarried, have the opportunity to form families and have children. It's rooted in their matrilineal society, where inheritance and leadership pass through the female line, making women's roles in continuing family lines absolutely crucial. But this custom also serves a practical purpose in communities where the male population is often smaller due to dangerous working conditions, migration for employment, or other factors. By sharing husbands, the community ensures that no woman is left without support or the possibility of having children, which is essential for the tribe's survival. 9. When gender determines your entire life. Despite some progress in recent decades, gender inequality here reaches levels that are difficult for people in developed countries to comprehend. The statistics alone are staggering. Approximately 51% of girls in Bangladesh are married before their 18th birthday, making it one of the highest marriage rates in the world. The legal system itself perpetuates this inequality. Inheritance laws based on Islamic Sharia grant men double what women receive, ensuring that women remain economically dependent throughout their lives. Even when women work, cultural norms in many areas discourage them from seeking financial independence or higher education, especially in rural regions where social pressure is most intense. Rates of domestic violence remain deeply concerning, yet reporting such incidents often brings victims more stigma than support. Many people endure their pain in silence, fearing that speaking out could lead to rejection from their families and communities. 10. Love has nothing to do with marriage. Arranged marriages dominate Bangladeshi society, with family interests and social positioning taking priority over individual emotions or compatibility. While technically the bride and groom's consent is required, the social and family pressure is so intense that saying no often isn't a realistic option, especially for women. The selection process focuses on factors like economic status, education level, family reputation, and social connections rather than emotional compatibility or personal attraction. Families negotiate these arrangements like business deals, with the bride's family often required to provide substantial dowries despite this practice being illegal. For many young people, this system means their entire future is decided by others. They have no opportunity to pursue education, careers, or personal development because their role is predetermined wife and mother, regardless of their own dreams or capabilities. The psychological impact of entering marriage without choice or emotional connection creates relationships built on obligation rather than partnership. What makes this particularly harsh is that it's often justified as protecting family honor and maintaining cultural traditions. But in reality, it's a system that prioritizes social appearances over human happiness and individual rights. Young people learn that their personal desires don't matter, creating a cycle where they'll likely impose the same system on their own children. 11. Sacred cows in a chaotic world. Picture this bizarre scene in the middle of Dhaka's chaotic traffic, with buses honking, rickshaws weaving, and millions of people trying to get somewhere. A cow lies down in the center of the road. Traffic stop. Buses wait. Rickshaws navigate around. Nobody moves the cow because in Bangladesh, these animals hold sacred status that transcends the practical needs of urban transportation. This creates one of the most surreal contrasts you'll find anywhere in the world. Bangladesh is predominantly Muslim, where beef consumption is religiously acceptable. Yet the significant Hindu minority reveres cows as sacred, and this reverence has become woven into the broader cultural fabric. But perhaps most shocking to Western sensibilities are the Hindu rituals involving cow waste. For some Hindu groups, cow urine and feces are considered purifying substances with divine properties. There are festivals where devotees bathe in fresh manure, believing it will cure diseases, bring divine blessing, and cleanse them of sins. In certain villages, entire communities participate in these rituals. Men, women, and children cover themselves in mud, mixed with cow dung as an act of deep faith. For outsiders, it's incomprehensible. For participants, it's a moment of profound spiritual connection and cultural identity. 12 cities where crime becomes survival. When desperation collides with opportunity in overcrowded cities, crime often transforms from a moral failing into a means of survival. In urban centers like Dhaka, Chittagong, and Khulna, it has become an intricate ecosystem that touches everyone, from wealthy business owners to humble street vendors trying to earn an honest living. Here, crime isn't simply about random acts of violence or occasional theft. It's systematic, deeply ingrained in daily life. In Dhaka's bustling markets, pickpocketing and petty theft are so common that both vendors and shoppers have developed clever ways to safeguard their belongings. At chaotic bus stations, organized gangs work together to target passengers amid the confusion of boarding and departure. Public transport is particularly risky. Crowded buses and rickshaws provide perfect cover for coordinated thieves who use distraction and teamwork to rob passengers trapped in tight spaces, unable to react or flee. What makes the problem even more troubling is that many crimes go unreported. Deep mistrust in law enforcement means people often believe that filing a report will bring more hassle than help. As a result, theft and robbery are treated almost as part of the urban experience, an inevitability of city life. This constant exposure to danger takes a heavy toll on residents. They live in a state of quiet tension, always alert, rarely at ease in public spaces. It's not just about losing possession, it's about losing peace of mind. For millions, the true cost of crime is the exhaustion of living in a world where safety feels like a luxury. 13. Life on water when land fails. In Bangladesh's river region, floating markets represent one of humanity's most ingenious adaptations to challenging geography. But they also reveal how people survive when traditional infrastructure fails. These markets operate like floating cities, with vendors arriving before dawn and boats loaded with fruits, vegetables, fresh fish, and household goods. Buyers navigate between vessels in small boats or wade into the water from riverbanks, creating a complex dance of commerce that's both beautiful and chaotic. It's a system that connects entire communities in areas where roads would be impossible to build or maintain. But these floating markets aren't just picturesque tourist attractions. They're lifelines for communities that have no other access to goods and services. Farmers and fishermen who live in remote areas depend on these markets to sell their products and buy necessities. For many families, the floating market is their only connection to the broader economy. The vendors themselves often live on their boats, making these markets not just commercial spaces but floating neighborhoods. Children grow up on these vessels, learning to swim before they can walk, and developing skills that allow them to navigate a world where water is both highway and home. However, these markets face existential threats. River pollution makes the water increasingly dangerous for both vendors and customers. Climate change brings more frequent and severe flooding, disrupting market operations and destroying livelihoods. Many of these traditional markets are disappearing as rivers become too polluted to support commerce, or as communities are forced to relocate due to environmental changes. 14 rivers that used to give life now bring death. The rivers of Bangladesh were once the arteries of civilization, providing fresh water, transportation, food, and fertile soil for agriculture. Today, many of these same rivers have become toxic streams that threaten the very communities they once sustained. This transformation represents one of the most heartbreaking environmental disasters you'll find anywhere in the world. Picture rivers that run completely black, with surfaces covered in industrial foam and debris. The water smells so strongly of chemicals that people cover their faces when crossing bridges. Fish that once fed millions of families have disappeared entirely, leaving behind water so polluted that even touching it can cause skin irritation and infections. This didn't happen overnight. For decades, factories have treated rivers as free waste disposal systems, dumping chemical products, dyes, and industrial byproducts directly into the water. Cities and villages have followed suit, using rivers as open sewers for human waste and garbage. The cumulative effect has been catastrophic. Communities that depended on fishing for both food and income have watched their livelihoods disappear. Families that fished the same rivers for generations now face unemployment and hunger, because the waters that sustained their ancestors have become too toxic to support any life. Many have been forced to migrate to overcrowded cities, adding to urban problems while leaving their traditional communities behind. The health impacts are severe and widespread. People who still use these waters for daily needs face constant exposure to dangerous chemicals and bacteria. Water-related diseases have become epidemic in riverside communities, and finding clean drinking water has become a daily struggle for millions of people. Perhaps most tragically, this environmental destruction is largely irreversible with current technology and resources. Even if all pollution stopped today, it would take decades for these rivers to recover, and many may never return to their former state. Entire ecosystems have been permanently destroyed, and the communities that depended on them face an uncertain future. 15. Where ancient customs meet modern survival. In a country facing overwhelming modern challenges, traditional customs and etiquette might seem irrelevant. But in Bangladesh, these social rules represent something deeper. They're survival mechanisms that help 173 million people coexist in one of the world's most crowded and challenging environments. Public displays of affection, even between married couples, are strictly forbidden. This isn't just about religious conservatism or cultural tradition. In a society where personal space is virtually non-existent and privacy is a luxury few can afford, these rules help maintain social harmony in impossibly crowded conditions. When people are forced to live in such close proximity, and strict social boundaries become essential for preventing conflicts. Dress codes are equally important and strictly enforced through social pressure. Modest clothing isn't just about religious observance, it's about showing respect for community values and avoiding unwanted attention in environments where standing out can be dangerous. For women especially, clothing choices can determine how they're treated in public spaces and whether they can move safely through their communities. Even something as simple as littering takes on greater significance in Bangladesh. In cities already overwhelmed by waste management challenges, throwing trash on the ground isn't just inconsiderate. It's contributing to public health crises and environmental disasters that affect everyone. The social pressure against littering represents communities trying to maintain some level of cleanliness and dignity despite overwhelming systemic failures. These customs might seem restrictive to outsiders, but they serve crucial functions in a society under extreme stress. They provide predictable social frameworks that help people navigate complex situations with limited resources. They create shared standards that allow diverse communities to coexist peacefully despite facing enormous challenges. What we've explored today isn't just a catalog of problems or a voyeuristic look at suffering. These 15 shocking facts reveal something profound about human resilience and adaptation. In Bangladesh, 173 million people wake up every day and find ways to survive, work, love, and build communities despite facing challenges that would overwhelm most societies. From workers risking their lives in ship graveyards to families creating floating markets when land-based commerce fails. From children forced into labor to communities sharing resources in ways that ensure everyone survives. Bangladesh shows us both the worst and best of human nature. It's a country where systematic failures create unimaginable hardships, but where human ingenuity and determination create solutions that shouldn't be possible. These realities should shock us, but they should also inspire us to understand that behind every statistic is a human being fighting for dignity, survival, and hope. The next time you put on a piece of clothing, consider the hands that made it. When you complain about traffic, remember the rickshaw drivers pedaling through impossible heat. When you turn on clean water, think about the communities that have watched their rivers die. Bangladesh's story is ultimately about what happens when too many people try to survive on too little land with too few resources. But it's also about the incredible capacity of human beings to adapt, endure, and find meaning even in the most challenging circumstances imaginable. What shocked you most about these facts? Have you ever visited Bangladesh or other countries facing similar challenges? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one and respond to as many as I can. And don't forget to hit subscribe. Turn on notifications bell so we can see you again in our next video. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. I hope you enjoyed it. Your support